Hey guys, it's Eric here. I wanted to do a little bit of an update to the channel. To let you guys know what's going on, I'm going to talk mostly about role-playing games, so if you're interested in that, hang on just a second, because we'll get into that quite soon. I wanted to talk about why I haven't been uploading that much recently, or rather why I have only uploaded like one game at all so far for like 1.5, 2 weeks now, like every second day. The reason being that I have actually gotten a new job, and it's kind of far away, so I have to like commute every day, like 2 hours there and back again, if not more. So it takes a lot of time for me, and I don't really have that much time. I haven't had much time actually to do any recordings, because I need to be in the right mindset and everything to actually do anything, and it's not fun for me if I do something that I feel is not good when I record, so that's the reason. Also, it's a time of adjustment to me because I'm not used to getting up. I've been unemployed for like more than 6 months, which meant that I slept until like 9 o'clock in the morning, relaxing, enjoying the fact that I didn't have to get up. And now I have to get up like 3 hours earlier to be able to get to my work. So it's kind of messing with my head. But I'm starting to finally get through that. So hopefully I'll be able to start recording already tomorrow. Or at least that's what I hope. Or that's my plan. So what have I done instead? Well, I've been focusing a lot on a role-playing game. I actually have it right here. It's called, I need to check here. It's right here, so it's called Drakar och Demoner. Does it say on the front? It's a very, very small text here that says Chronopia on it. And on the back it says, in Swedish, "Welcome to Chronopia." This is a really, really freaking old role-playing game. Let's see now, it was published by a company called Äventyrsspel, which means basically adventure games. And it was printed in 1994. Oh, sorry, it was copyrighted by Target Games, which today is actually called Paradox. You might know them, Paradox Interactive. They're going to release Mutant Year Zero quite soon. They have, through Modifius, already released. Let's see now, I think I have the Swedish edition, so that game too. Let's see, it's right over here. This is the second edition of Mutant Year Zero, the Swedish edition. So it's one of their games. I'm going to put it back here. Let's see, there was also the Mutant Chronicles, third edition, that Modifius also released, and I think you also have an offshoot of Drakar och Demoner is called, I don't have it here. I'm going to show you guys some more books. Here's some more mutant books, like the book version, the campaign book, and the rule book. And I also have, I'm a bit of a collector, that's why I have them. I also have right over here, and this is a bit of a treat, so one moment. I also have here, and this is a little bit cool, this is the first edition Mutant Year Zero in Swedish. Still in the original packaging. It's still, with plastic around it. I've never opened it. And I'm not sure, I can't remember. This is from 2014. It's quite some time ago. And I can remember, this might be... Oh my, it's so dusty. It might actually be like from the original Kickstarter. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then this one I know is from the Kickstarter. Oh my god, there's so much dust here. I need to do some cleaning. Holy shit. My trousers just got really dusty, and they're black, but now they're kind of like white. Here we go. GenLab Alpha. I think it's out now in English. It's like Genetic Laboratory Alpha. This is also first original, and I think it's also from the Kickstarter. Never opened, because I have 2 editions of both. So the collector in me is going like, that I'm even touching these right now. But let's get back to Chronopia. I've been, since last year, I've been running a campaign. Well, a little bit background story. Drakar och Demoner is the Swedish version. It's not the same as Dungeons and Dragons. It's not. It's the guys who created the company who released this back in I think it was 1982. They were really smart because I think they actually got the license to publish Dungeons and Dragons in Sweden, but I don't think they were given that such a good, because back then we didn't speak English that well. We didn't in the 80s, so everything had to be translated. So I think they got the license to translate it, but they wouldn't earn anything on it. So what they did was that they got their hands on now another book here, the basic roleplay rules from Chaosium, or Chaosium, or however it's pronounced in English. So they got the version that was available then. It's actually in this. I think it's actually, this is kind of funny. So they based the original game on this rule system, and they made their own version of a fantasy role-playing game with their own world. So it was not any specific setting that they had. That came later, and that setting was called Ereb Altor. All the adventures took place on the continent of Ereb and on the world of Altor. Let's see now. I'm trying to find it here. Just give me a moment. I'm starting to feel like I am the spoony one right now, because he used to do this too. And right now I'm basically just rambling about a lot. Let's see now. Oh, right here, I think it is. There have been several games using the system. The original RuneQuest. Basic roleplay system was first created in 1978 for RuneQuest by Grave Stafford's World of Glorantha. The basic mechanics was designed by Steve Perrin, Steve Anderson, and Ray Turney. And then they used it for a lot of it was. There was also Stormbringer, which was based on Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock. Yeah, Moorcock. The Call of Cthulhu uses this system. Worlds of Wonder uses this. Larry Niven's Ringworld. The comic book series ElfQuest. Hawkmoon. Pendragon. Superworld. Yeah, even here. On page 10. Haha, now I'm being extra nerdy. On page 10, it says here, right. Furthermore, basic role-playing has influenced many other game systems directly or indirectly, particularly in Europe, where many games are openly based on its system. Some examples are Fantasy Games Unlimited's Of the Sun and Äventyrsspel's Drakar och Demoner, and they even have translation here, Demons and Dragons. So what they did is that they created this role-playing game, Drakar och Demoner, which cornered the market of role-playing games. There was a role-playing renaissance during the 80s and the early 90s for Äventyrsspel. They dominated everything. So they had Dungeons and Dragons was taken care of. They made, as I showed you, Mutant. It's based on Gamma World, also cornering the market. And then there was the natural evolution of Mutant into something different. They took it to space, because they also had the license to Star Wars, West End Star Wars, which was literally translated into my language, which sounds really ridiculous. It really does. But this evolved, influenced by Games Workshop, Games Workshop's own Rogue Trader game, which became Warhammer 40,000 by the second edition. In the beginning, it was called Rogue Trader. It was inspired by it because it was very similar in a way to the original D&D, where you had your miniatures on the table and you had like skirmishes, rather like the early chainmail style of before Dungeons and Dragons became Dungeons and Dragons. So they evolved and were borrowed a lot from that, and they made Mutant Chronicles. I think they had something in between there called Mutant Space. And in the 80s, as I said, late 80s, it was the Renaissance, and they had populated Arab, and they did a big freaking mistake. Is that instead of hiring in-staff people, like most people do today, like they hire in-staff, I think Dungeons & Dragons suffered from this too, is that they had too many consultants or freelance people writing material for the game world, which means that there was no coordination. One part of the game world, I think it was like the original world, like Zorakeen and Cardia and Berendia, were like these classic feudal states and all that. But then they started to pop up other weird cultures that didn't really fit into the mix. And by the end of the 80s, this was this patchwork world of Arab that was really fucked up, literally. And they didn't care. Well, I think they cared, but they were a bit sloppy when it came to game design. There was a lot of game breaking from the rules set. There were bad writers. And then there was a guy who showed up that I think a lot within the Swedish role-playing community dislike, and his name is Johan Sjögren. The first supplement I know that he wrote for the original Drakar och Demoner was Elves, like the Elf Splat book. And it's such a fan wank of Tolkien-esque elves. It's horrible. And that's also where, in my opinion at least, where the power problems start to show up. Everything has a power creep. Everything becomes more and more cooler, bigger, grander. Everybody's better than everyone else. And that's a problem when you do poor game design. Or when you're sloppy at your game design. I have dust in my freaking nose or in my mustache. Sorry. And this accumulated into... Well, it's all accumulated and it kind of entered into another game series. Well, an adventure book series that he wrote that's called the Nidland Purification, which binds into one of those like world-spanning campaigns that would affect the entire setting. And I've never seen a better example of how to railroad your players all the way from start to finish. Every character they meet is way cooler or way better than any of the players. They have no choices, nothing. It's just straight lined. This is where you go. There's an illusion of that they might do something, but by the end, he has basically written that if your players don't follow your directions, make them. I mean, that's like shooting your own fucking head off, literally. But back to the story. By the beginning of the 90s, this patchwork world didn't really work out, so they wanted to expand onto something new and perhaps later consolidate, I don't know, maybe consolidate Arab in a later edition. So they made this game, Chronopia. The game developers who wrote this have given a little bit mixed information as far as I know. Some say they were really proud of the original work. Some say they were not proud at all. They had, let's see now, what's his name? I can't remember. Was it? Who was it? Oh, the bastards. What happened was that they had some general ideas of what they wanted to write, and then they made here we go. The campaign world, the background setting, not the rules or anything like that, was written by Bill King. You know, the guy who writes for Black Library. And I was searching around for some information about that, and it turns out that they hired Bill King. I don't think they hired him because they knew he was good, because this was in the early 90s. They hired him because he was cheap. It was cheaper for them to hire Bill King and then retranslate his works in English into Swedish. And you can notice that here in the back there's you can see there's a part here that is a little bit more yellowish, and the other part is grayish. That's the story background. And it's actually quite okay. I mean, I've read way worse settings than this one. But the thing is that they had a very loyal following. They had a very loyal fan base, which meant that when they moved away from Arab and they kept the name, Drakar och Demoner, to the product. I mean, that's kind of common. You have a new setting, you attach the rules names or the original settings name because you have the brand recognition. It will sell better. But people got really pissed off because they associated this game, which had nothing to do with the original setting. This was amended later on in the final supplement to the game, which was called the back side or the other side of Altor, where they kind of connected the world of Chronopia with Altor, which I think was the final nail in the coffin because people didn't like mixing these two settings together at all. And the problem again that they had with Chronopia was that there was an intense power creep. Everything sounded really relatively balanced in the beginning, but then Johan Sjöberg wrote supplement after supplement, and you can notice that he didn't like Bill King's writing. He was retconning seriously or contradicting. I've been now working through some of the books he has written, and he even contradicts himself on things he do. So I'm just going crazy about that. So I've been running this campaign in this setting. Chronopia is this giant city. It's basically Ankh-Morpork, but in a different world. It's a more steampunkish world, which Ankh-Morpork became before Terry Pratchett passed away. It started to get industrially revolutionized, and more steam power technology started to show up. The game has friction between the races. I mean, racism doesn't really exist, or at least I don't let it exist in my game. I let speciesism exist, but you have to be really careful with it. And here's a question for all the players and GMs out there. How do you manage your racism or speciesism in your campaign? I'm kind of curious because I use it mostly to gather prejudices against different groups, and then playing on that and contradicting it to make people think. That's usually what I do. I like to make my players think about it. So we have this giant city of perhaps 20 million, maybe even more people living in it. It's a mess, really. It's a freaking mess. You have decadent elves. The elves aren't nice. They are still Tolkien-esque, but they are not nice people. They had the douchebag level from Tolkien cranked up to 11. They have sex, they do drugs, they smuggle drugs, they kill people. They don't give a fuck about themselves even. So that's a kind of a cool idea. I like it. Evil elves. On the other hand, trolls are actually player characters, and they are friendly. They are basically harmless children, more or less. So I kind of like that difference. Humans are just humans, basically assholes. As usual in all fantasy settings, they are there. They are supposed to be the dominant species, and they're kind of pushed aside down here because, oh, look over here, we have so many cool characters, and we have so many cool NPCs, and we have so many cool other races. They have a lizard folk group called the Draconians. There's dwarves. There's no halflings. They've actually exchanged them for some kind of weird hobbit-esque goblinoid creature called the Vongosians. You have orcs as player characters, goblins, and ogres. The different elves. Let's see, I'm trying to remember if I missed anything. I'm going to double check here because there were some original races, and then they added more races, and they made a difference between all human races too. So they became like, this was in the 90s, so be mindful of that there were some stupid people then, and they made, well, excuse me, they made a difference between human races too, because it had been originally like that way back when the game was created. Dungeons & Dragons now has fixed it by having humans and human alternates. And the same with, like, you have the main race, elf, and then you have, like, an ethnicity, like elf variant, wood elf. That's how I did it when I redid the rules here. So you have here, as you know, you have two different kinds of elves, like high elves. No, you have three. You have high elves that are called mist elves. You have the city elves, who are the decadent assholes. You have the light elves, which are wood elves, but they are still assholes. All of them are assholes. Anyone who gets into Chronopia becomes corrupted by some kind of unseen, evil, ethereal force that is never explained to become an asshole. You have draconians, dwarves, goblins, half-elves, and then they have a race called Highlanders. And I was like, well, aren't they humans? Yeah, I know there's a difference between races and everything, but yeah, Highlanders are here. Sure. So I had a look back here in the story setting part, where it turns out that there were twin gods that created the heavens and the earth and blah, 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 you know. And it turns out that the evil god of nastiness, he created humans and the other races, while the good god created... it was over here somewhere. I'm going to paraphrase here, but in the beginning, they are called... This is also such stupid names. Caleb and Charon. Charon. You know, the riverman. In the beginning, the twin gods Caleb and Charon was given each a gift. With these gifts, they created fantastic things in the world of Chronopia. Caleb created the dragons and created mountains that went far above the seas. The great forests he created and the wild highlands, and he created peoples to live in these lands. The elves settled in the forest, the dwarves in the mountains, and the proud highlanders on the high plateaus between the mountains. Blah blah blah. Charon was given magic as his gift, but it didn't have the same creative power as the one of Caleb and his dragons, so he could only create weaker copies of his brother's work. In his envy, Charon surrounded himself by his brother's creations and tried to destroy them. And from this, he created the plains, the deserts, the tundras, and the endless glaciers to the north. Charon's people were the humans, but they didn't have the same ember of life or life force as the people of Caleb. But they were given magic, so humans are bad. Get it? So the good god created all races except man, but the bad god created man. And that I didn't like too much, but these are just creation myths, and as a GM, you're free to change that as you want. So what happens is that in the beginning of the world, the gods create everything, but they fight over a woman. It's so original. But what happens is that the good brother beats the bad brother and imprisons him deep beneath the magma oceans to the south. And then history goes on for 10 or 11,000 years until one of the bad god's servants, who created humans, managed to actually free him. It's very vague how that happened. They don't really explain it. But he came back 400 years ago, and now he has created this big perverted country that seems to be some kind of mix of like Nazism, fascism, communism. No, not really. Well, kind of like communism and still not like really misunderstood communism, perhaps. And they are kind of like, they're using necromancy. They are evil. But everybody's evil in the setting, so it's kind of becomes a gray zone on who is evil. It becomes like you're evil for a set value of evil, basically. And I'm rambling on again. But the problem is that due to this, people didn't like it. And in the 90s, there was a moral panic, like in the US over Dungeons & Dragons, that Dungeons & Dragons, it will make your kids go crazy and kill each other and so forth. And we had the same thing here, so it kind of started to kill off the industry. The people who started playing the games originally had gotten older. They had made some bad decisions. The 90s was also bad financially. So role-playing games kind of slowly died off. Okay, I'm back. I got a phone call. And what was I talking about? Yeah, so the setting, there was a depression and everything. And it died off. But the thing is that Chronopia has a lot of possibilities. I mean, it's a big city, you have a framework of things. The rules are based on basic roleplay, which means that I've tried to go back to the original versions and borrowed a little bit ideas here and there. And I've been running my campaign now for 16 sessions. We play every second week. I've missed maybe 2-3, so we played about 40 weeks. That's about 10 months, more or less. 9 to 10 months we've been playing. And we are building our own version of the city. And I'm working through because what I had to do is that this, I don't know if it ever was translated into English. I know that there was what's it called? A tabletop game, a miniature game. I mean, this is a tabletop game, goddammit. Not a board game, but a miniature game called Chronopia 2 that was very similar to like Warhammer Fantasy Battles. It didn't work either. I think what they tried to do, they made a Mutant Chronicles once too, called Warzone. I think they kind of overextended themselves, and that's the problem. They didn't get the... I heard that Chronicles was very popular abroad, and I think that the miniature games were quite popular, but I don't think it was enough to keep the company floating. Sadly enough. But now, hey, about 20, almost 30 years later, they've started to to re-release them and make newer versions. And yeah, but still, this one is quite good. And I haven't worked out really yet the what's it called, the combat system yet. I'm still working on that. We've been doing some practice runs, mostly because we don't need it that much when I'm GM, because I focus more on social interaction and actions, because they play like the managerial staff rather. So it's more intrigue and character-based advancement of the plot. I also use a little bit unusual... I don't know how other GMs play, or how they do, because it was a long time ago since I actually had any contact, serious contact with other GMs. And what I do is that I just have hooks in my setting, and after that, the players are free to do basically anything they want. I will stop them if they're doing anything too stupid or trying to break the game. But I give them like plot hooks. They can pick it up. And then I only react to their decisions and improvise everything else. So I usually make up a couple of rumors and then some plot hooks, and then I'll see where they go from there. Now they've started to get more power, which means that the last session I had to give them some opposition, and due to that they had a hook earlier about, well, there are explosives, some kind of explosives in this game, that somebody had stolen them, and there were talks about maybe some terrorist-like attacks. There's not really terrorists, but fanatical attacks against certain groupings within the district they live in. And due to the fact that they didn't pick up on that hook, I had to give the consequence of that hook. Sorry, that's what I do with the hooks. I give like a benefit and a consequence. If they take it, it's this. If they don't take it, it will be this. So those are the main rules I followed, and they can develop into different things. So what's happened now is that things have gone boom, and everything is in disarray. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get out of that mess. But that's the fun part, to see them really struggle and find their way in the game world. But now, I have one more thing I wanted to add, because I don't know what I've been talking about. I've just been rambling on and on and on. Basically, that's all I've been doing now for the past, let's see, how long I've been recording? About 30 minutes now? It wasn't planned to be this long. I thought it would be about maybe 10 to 15 minutes, all in all. That's when I start talking about role-playing games. So we have a city-state. I'm going to probably put up some... I forgot to mention that. I probably put that up earlier too, like maps that I've been working on. And I'm working on the rest of the story, the setting, trying to write more information about parts of the city, all the races who inhabit it. It's a big freaking work. And that's when I realized that some of this is really fucked up. And I'm trying to fix it. And if anybody else has fixed it, please let me know. Or if you did something different in your campaign, if you're Swedish speaking, English speaking, I don't care. I just want to know, how did you guys do? Is there anything I can be inspired by? And also as GMs, what's your style? Do you have a specific plan or a plot that the characters work with, or is it just something spontaneous that just happens? Let me know, because I'm curious. And I think once more I lost my thread of where I was going. I'm so freaking stupid. I should make a script, but that's the problem with me. I rarely do scripts for anything. I just go and see what happens. I hope you guys survived my ramblings about this city, my complaints, and also my fascination with it, because I think it was badly treated by people, and it still is, a bit undeservedly so. There are worse settings out there, and you can fix it quite easily. And maybe someday I'll release so people can use what I've been working on. I don't know if there will be a new edition of Chronopia. There's a big maybe after I talked to the owner of the license. I had a word with him, and he's in the talk with some companies about it. I don't know where it's going to lead. He's not going to tell me, of course, because that would be too much information. Not allowed to stir the market and everything. Right, one more thing. I wanted to gauge the interest. I've been talking about this game now. Would you guys be interested in me talking a bit more about the city, about the setting? Because I'm planning on maybe starting another group that is more combat-based. I could do it more character-based too, of course, that's no problem. But if there is anyone interested, do subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel in general, but please write a comment down below, and I'll have a look and we can talk. Also for GMs, please write a comment and let me know what you think about this setting, how you work, how I work. Let's connect a little bit here. So with that, I'm going to end this video log here, and I'm probably going to start recording again tomorrow. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you liked what you saw, do leave a like and a comment. But for now, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you guys later.